Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. I'm Alex Parra, and it's always an honor and a pleasure to be part of, hopefully, a little bit of your lives. We appreciate you tuning in, following us, and everything that we do here, not only at the Soccer Tejas Podcast, but with Deportes Nation and Soccer Tejas in general. A lot to talk about as we talk about Week 3 of the MLS, and we also get ready for the start of the NWSL season, and so many more topics that we will be discussing. So, without further ado, now you see them on screen. Let's welcome in the rest of the gang, the team. Gang sounds bad, right? Like we're doing something illegal.
Oh my gosh. Why? Just because we're minorities. This is why you're saying it.
Someone's
gonna
perfect
with the Screwston theme.
There you go. Someone's gonna get mad at me about something. How about we start today with welcoming in the one and only Victor Araiza first. Victor, how are you? Happy day, happy evening, good day, good evening, good morning. How are you, Victor?
Doing well, Alex. Always a pleasure to be on here with you, with Laura, talking about our beautiful sport here, especially with the World Cup looming closer and closer. And two of the Texas cities coming, being part of the eye of the storm here when the World Cup comes next year. I'm sure we'll get into some of that.
We will in less than now, 480 some days. Someone's counting, so someone will have to help me with the detail. You see her now in the middle of the screen, the most beautiful out of the three, I have to say. Maybe not by a lot, but she's certainly the most beautiful. I'm kidding, Laura.
It doesn't matter what. A win is a win, and I'm the prettiest one here. So
you're the prettiest, the smartest, and certainly the most knowledgeable about our sport. Laura Gomez, how are you, Laura?
I'm doing well. And I have to agree with you. I am the prettiest, and like I said, a win is a win. Happy to be here once again to talk about football.
Why not? A lot to talk about. So why don't we start a little bit, Victor? And I turn to you first. We were watching the first away game for the Houston Dynamo at Columbus this past Saturday, an early afternoon game on Saturday. So I was in between things. I was able to catch the game. But Victor, your initial impressions about the match, by the way, a 0-0, a 0-0 draw, as they say. But the first point of the season for Ben Olsen and the Houston Dynamo FC.
The first point of the entire season, first three games, the first two didn't go as expected, and that's the positive everybody's taking, right? It's a result. You're starting to build something. Certainly, compared to the other two games, it's a way better look than giving up 4 goals or again losing to your rival on your home turf to begin the season. And again, it gets painted a little bit better because Columbus has been one of the better teams in the league. They're also in reconstruction, just like the Dynamo. They're also moving some pieces around. So I think we got to take that into consideration, and certainly the fact that they're competing in 2 different competitions, maybe putting more of a priority on the CONCACAF Champions Cup to start the season. But again, Tarbo having a good day with a few good saves, and the first point on the road. That's certainly the big positive that comes away from this game.
Victor, without a doubt, a point is a point, and that's the positive to take away from the match. In a second, I'll give you my impressions of the style of soccer that I see coming out of the Houston Dynamo FC. But Laura, your initial impressions about the match in Ohio and the first point for the Houston Dynamo FC this season.
I mean, I wish I had more to say, honestly. I just think that it was a game. It's a lack of a lot of things. I think that, but it was, I guess, a game that was a little bit better than the last one that we saw of the Houston Dynamo. So there was some improvement there, and they were able to get their what, Victor?
I said it couldn't have been worse, really.
Okay, yeah, but it was, that's what I said. They improved from the last one that they did, and they at least got a point, so, and they didn't get scored on. So let's just take that 1 point.
Victor,
just take that win.
Well, look, relative to the beating that the team took against Miami, and there's no other way to frame that, getting a point on the road, if you analyze it only from that perspective, it's a positive step. It's a step in the right direction. Let's do that. My concern, Laura and Victor, is is and this doesn't only apply to the Houston Dynamo. I think it's soccer in not only the United States, but in many countries, that if you don't have the instinct and knowledge and experience to go forward and attack and score goals, you have the instinct to possess the ball. Possession is one thing, but moving forward and actually creating opportunities is another. Look, I've attempted to coach this sport for many, many years, and it boils down, in my opinion, friends, to the material that you have to work with. The players, their ability to adapt, their ability to play together and have chemistry. I saw at least 6 times, and I pointed out in my notes the minutes, when the Houston Dynamo, Victor, were on the verge of a counterattack. Numbers moving forward, and the initial instinct was to hold the ball, possess it, and then turn around. Basically, you're helping your opponent by giving them time to fall back and reset. I did not understand that. And often when there was a transition and they collected the ball, I'm talking about the Houston Dynamo, they would attempt to move forward and there was no communication or chemistry, and they would actually turn the ball over almost immediately. We saw Miami and Houston, and what they were able to do instinctively, it was to move forward, attack, and create opportunities. At this rate, though, this kind of improvement is going to take weeks, if not months. And by then, mathematically, and I'll go to you first, Victor, it may be too late to do anything about it, even bringing in a designated player. So it's concerning to me because the instinct is not to attack. The instinct now is to survive and at least do something well, defend well, and don't make any mistakes. You know, Tarbell, to me, was the bright light of the match against Columbus. So we'll give him credit. But the mistakes in the back were still there. The lack of decision was still there. And I go back to it. My point I'm trying to emphasize here, I did not see an instinct to attack and move forward. Easy to criticize. I understand, friends. But Victor, that's my take on what we saw on the field side.
No, I agree, but I think that's been again, I've said it in years prior when Hector Herrera wasn't moving or pulling the strings on the field. I think, this is basically the style they're going to play under Ben Olsen. And it's not, they can say possession based, which I think now that's out the window based on this previous press conference before the game. But it is to be more narrow defensively, if I can put it that way. I think they have stripped all creativity from attack because, I go back to it. The big purchase last year was Ezequiel Ponce, and I don't think there was any. Again, the way they play, I don't think it nurtures his game to get him open for opportunities to score. He had a good play where I think he basically backheeled it into, who was it? Amin Bassi, if I'm not mistaken. That was the most dangerous opportunity for the Dynamo on the whole day. Again, if I'm recalling it the right way, it eventually goes to Griffin Dorsey, and then Dorsey, gets his shot blocked. But that was about as much creativity as you saw all year. Now, Nico Loledo starting for the first time with this team, I think that had people thinking that the Dynamo were maybe going to be a little bit more attack-minded. And I did think the killer instinct wasn't there for either team. And maybe that's what, kind of led to the 0-0 draw. But I think for two different reasons, like I've mentioned, I think Columbus, and I'm not saying this in a form of disrespect, it's just the way that I look at it. I really think Columbus was conserving the most it could of its energy for the Champions League second leg. I don't think they gave it their all. And again, I'll take the onus on that because I don't think we saw Diego Rossi that really win at the Houston Dynamo. This is a Columbus that's different. There's no Cucho Hernandez anymore. There's no Christian Ramirez. Jason Russell-Rowe is now having to step into a different role of being a starter on this team. And again, I don't think they necessarily went for it as much. Maybe they're just adapting to their new pieces or just, again, the new life post-Cucho. Like the Dynamo are adapting post-Herrera and Carrasquilla and Mikael. But I don't think I did feel Columbus was maybe a little bit more focused on just trying to get something out of this, but trying to really get healthy to that second leg with LAFC, where by the way they're down 3-0. So they're going to have to push in that game. And the reverse in Houston, I don't think they win at Columbus with the intention of basically thinking that way and saying, well, these guys are probably looking forward to Tuesday. Let's go at them. Let's press them. Let's attack. Let's be a little bit more risk taking. If we lose on the road, who cares? It's early in the season. That's probably what people expect. We're here to try to make something that's going to get us more value down the road, right? And maybe for them it was the point, and building on something and putting out the fires of the first 2 weeks, which was basically getting trashed by Miami and losing at home to Dallas.
Laura, what we see here for the Dynamo is slow improvement, if you can call it that. It's still early in the season. We know this is a long season, and you've got to pace yourself. And we'll talk about the other teams from Texas. All three teams without a win this past weekend in week number 3 of MLS action. But what is the fix for the Dynamo? Is the fix adding? Is the fix time, Laura? I mean, yeah, you can learn, and this, I think Ben Olsen has said this. This is a rebuilding. I don't know if he used that word. It's certainly a work in progress. And
I think they're trying to avoid using that word, but it basically is a rebuilding year.
I don't disagree with that. And we're seeing it. Laura, is it limping along and picking up a point here, a point there, and 10 games into the season, staying close to the playoff race?
I mean, look, I'm gonna stick to what I've said in prior seasons, that honestly, for me, if they make it to the playoffs and get eliminated in the first round, I don't want them to make it to the playoffs. That's not something that
Which is what happened last
we
year.
should, clap and say kudos to. I think that Houston deserves better. I think that it's been many years, and sadly on both teams, the women's and the men's, that the word transition, that word reconstruction has been used here and there for many years. And I think, as a Houstonian and as a reporter, I'm kind of over it. So when they say reconstruction or rebuilding, I'm like, this is kind of like the day-to-day kind of language that has been thrown around for many seasons. So what does a Dynamo need to do to fix it? I mean, I think that, honestly, at this point, I think that it's something at its core. I think that something in the culture of the club needs to change that mentality of perhaps of like, oh, if we make it to the playoffs, we're doing well. And that's not good enough. I think that they've been sleeping enough, honestly, for many seasons, and that making it to the playoffs isn't the goal. The goal should be to win the cup entirely.
Well, so let me be devil's advocate with that comment. The team have made the playoffs in the last 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. That's an improvement to the previous 7 years without a playoff appearance. If you measured by that standard, it's improvement. And I'm going.
And that's the argument. Why that low standard?
Well, it's a standard because when you don't make the playoffs for so long, making the playoffs is a step in the right direction. My concern is that you no longer have a player of the level of Hector Herrera. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. With this team. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any of the players that are there, but they're not certainly selling jerseys and certainly not picking up victories on the field. So by both of those standards, from a marketing perspective and a results perspective on the field, it's not the same team as last year that made the playoffs. But is the pressure now, and I'll ask you, Victor and Laura, but Laura first, playoffs is almost like a necessary part of the progression of this team. If not, it's a step backwards.
Of course.
And then the measurement is, well, okay, so don't worry about it. And you spoke about the culture. What needs to change? Is it the system? I think Ben Olsen, if he's honest with us, and I don't know the gentleman, would say, look, I don't have the material to win. And that's not on him. Maybe that's on management above him and on the owner. I mean, maybe that's a direct question. Forgive me, I'm beating on my microphone. That's a direct question I'm asking you, Laura. Is that the change of culture we're talking about?
I mean, I think that it's a lot, and I agree with you. I don't think that we can just blame the coach. I mean, the coach is an essential part of it, but it isn't all. At the end of the day, who's managing the strings? It isn't just the coach.
Right.
It's the person that has the big bucks, right? And the person that has the big bucks isn't listening or isn't giving everything that the coach wants. The coach has to do what he can with what he has. Again, the Dynamo wants to do that, construction of a team of perhaps of a lot of quote unquote workers and things like that, and not go for big names like perhaps LA and Miami and other teams do. I mean, that's something that's the Dynamo has done. I think that the biggest signing for many years has been Hector Herrera, and he really didn't last. My question to you guys, if you're saying the standard is not making it and the standard was, oh, they finally made it to the playoffs and that's good enough, were you excited to watch this team play? Even in the last time that they made it to the playoffs, were you excited to see the Dynamo play every time they were on the field? And that's my question to both of you guys. And my answer is no.
Well, you mean from an attractive soccer, from picking up points
I
and
think
winning?
there was players that I wanted to watch. Certainly, because of what Herrera, what he brought. Again, that question mark, right? Of a little bit different of risk taking when he's on the field. If Carrasquilla could ever achieve his best form, which I don't think we ever did see with the club, I think having those question marks heading into games, that's what made it intriguing, and that's what put interest in it. But I told you guys, here in different, whether it be podcasts or chats we've had, I didn't see them winning the MLS Cup because I saw the limit, which they were eventually gonna reach, and I'm sorry, I don't put a lot of stock into the MLS measuring system. And what I mean by that is the playoff system is designed for over 50% of the teams to get in. If you're ninth, you get in. So again, does that really define a successful season? Getting to the Western Conference final, it's nice. I'll go with Alex on that one. Compared to the previous years, sure, by definition, it has to be an improvement. But is that really success? And I think when we dive into what the team has done throughout the year, what their potential should have been, and then again, when you go to say, okay, well, they made the Western Conference in 2023. Then by the logic in 2024, they should have came back again or improved, right? If they had followed up on it, which of course they went one and done. So, again, I don't know if this podcast is long enough for us to go into every detail, but I do think, there's pressures from different points. The easiest one is internally, and it would help if it came from the ownership group, which I don't think it does. And again, there is a level of complacency that stems from the top down that goes to what we're saying here. I mean, the goal here is just to make the playoffs. Because they made the playoffs the last 2 years, it's exactly what you're going to hear all year long. We made the playoffs the last 2 years. So, they're going to paint it as they're on pace to make it a third year, or that's the plan, right? And, we won't know until we get to the end of the year, and, then we'll see what happens. But no, you're right. It shouldn't be. The goal should be, no, we're going all in. And you know what? Even if we moved on from Herrera or Carrasquilla, here's what we're doing to be an MLS contender in
Victor,
2025.
But I'm going
to
interrupt you. At what point is being selfish a part of what this team wants to do to win? Why didn't they work harder for Carrasquilla to stay here, not to go elsewhere? Why didn't they forgive the sins, I'm going to use that word, of both Carrasquilla and Herrera, of those red cards? I think it was convenient timing to say, look, let's find opportunities for them. When you start thinking about, well, we don't want to hold this player back, we want them to grow elsewhere. Well, what about growing here? And what about continuing to win here? And let's negotiate you staying here and helping us win. I don't sense that urgency, and that's what's happened, and that's
because
happening.
It doesn't exist.
And wait,
I don't know.
So Laura, and quickly, what's happening with the Dash? Tarcian, a player who has got so much potential and growth, is no longer here because of opportunities elsewhere. that also tells me people don't want to be here. That's three specific examples, and there are more. So my point is, I think week 3, friends, and is the way we're all seeing it. Is this the way it's going to play out? Which is
I'm just gonna
more of the same.
I'm gonna answer the Carrasquilla thing. I think Carrasquilla, I think it was his time to go because he's still somewhat young and wanted to grow. But I think that, Hector Herrera should have stayed. I think that they could have worked hard enough. They could have worked something out. I mean, I think that was something that, honestly, I think that the team might have benefited more from having someone of his stature and the guidance and things like that. And of talking of players, perhaps people don't know and blah, blah, blah. I hear so many people comment and say, oh, we need to get named players and blah, blah, blah. But, Miami just showed that they have young players that are making the game exciting. And there's people that don't know who he is. I mean, my dad was like, oh, who's that guy? The Venezuelan guy. I forgot the one that scored. I forgot his name. What's his name? But anyways, he was one that made the team exciting. He's really young. What happened?
No, go continue.
What was his name? I think so. Yeah, that was him. I think so. But my point here is, I go back to saying about, were you excited to see the?
Finish.
I'm like, my point is, were you excited to see the team play, whether they're winning or losing? But did you see any spark that made you think, this team is going to go far, or they're working on something? But it's the same thing again. The levels of saying, oh yeah, we made it to the playoffs, but honestly, it was
That's
kind of
the
like
bar. That's the bar.
Oh, yeah.
So let me jump in.
It's just frustrating to see.
Yeah, let me jump in, and forgive me, I don't mean to step over either one of you. So you're talking about Segovia, the young player for Miami, who has been a revelation. Yes, the Venezuelan, he's been a revelation. We're not talking Suarez or Messi, but talking Segovia. Currently the leading scorer for the team with 3, if I'm not mistaken. Someone will fact check me.
So why can the Miami find those young players, realistically unknown players, and why can't the Dynamo find those kind of players?
Look, I understand, and the question is, what is this process of doing this? And look, my take on looking at, and I certainly don't pretend again to know the gentleman Victor. And listening to Ben Olsen is that he's got his hands full this year, and he knows it, and he's a professional who's going to handle it and play with the cards that are dealt to him. But I think any objective person can say that this team is not the same as last year, meaning not as strong and competitive, and that just making the playoffs is not even a guarantee. So by that standard, Victor, because that's the way after the possible 9 points. The team has 1. You see the standings. You see the reality of this. That's not going to change anytime soon. But what is the consequence of such a start, Victor? Where is the pressure? And is that our role as the media to ask these questions? Fans seem content so far, Victor, and we'll see at the next home match if the attendance is there. Where does the pressure come on the organization to start to win? Is that a fair question, Victor? And I'll start with you. Where does the pressure come from?
It won't come from anywhere. Maybe it'll come from some of the players that have, a proudness or just dignity to want to win and have a competitiveness about them. Somebody like a Nico Lodeiro and Eric Sviatchenko, I could see those guys pushing from internally and saying, what are we doing here, right? Are we just pushing to go along with the season, or are we, how far do we really want to go? And I think when you have coaches like that, that's when you see players rally together and you could maybe achieve a U.S. Open Cup. But again, is that what you want? You want a team that competes for Open Cups, and by definition, that's competing for championships, right? That was a Matt Jordan special, which I think now you're getting here. With everybody here from Siegel to Olsen to Onstad and Mendelsohn, you're getting that phrase of competing for championships, and when are we going to say where we want to compete for the MLS Cup? We want Houston to be among the top teams in MLS. When are we going to hear that? I think the opportunities when they say that is few and far between. And again, when you see the actions on the field, we'll see if they really get a designated player. Why can't they get a designated player that galvanizes the soccer community? Like I said, I think if you're moving past Hector Herrera, James Rodriguez would have been the perfect almost replacement, because of where you need to go and attack, because of the Colombian community here. I mean, for God's sake.
Well, let's not talk about the Colombians.
The Rockets are having
That's a good
Noche
example,
Latina
Victor.
featuring Colombia. How the hell do the Rockets prioritize the Colombian community before the Dynamo, which is supposed to be about soccer and the primary sport for Colombia?
And I know having had Colombian players.
Exactly. And I know they're going to mention, oh, but you got Quiñones. I mean, this would have been a prime guy that would have brought you Colombian fans, Real Madrid fans, just general fans, get you that risk-taking, attacking play.
So, Victor,
but that's not what they're doing. They want a certain style. They want to keep everything under a certain bubble. And look, Ben Olsen's never going to talk against needing or having a bad team or not having resources publicly because he's protected. He knows he has the backing of the sporting director or the chief soccer officer, whatever Onstad's tag is now. And
general manager of soccer,
and he's
president
an expert
of soccer,
at it because he did it 10 years in DC with another ownership group that didn't want to spend money.
So here's the question to both of you, and maybe that'll give us kind of a break of what the Dynamo are currently doing. There's talk right now that Cristiano Ronaldo, currently with Al Nassr, is already being courted by the LA Galaxy. Why is there not talk about the Houston Dynamo courting Cristiano Ronaldo?
Alex, stop it.
Maybe because it's not a possibility.
Why is it not a possibility? Because the money isn't there. LA Galaxy apparently can find it. They found it for David Beckham.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the money isn't there. I think we're all being misled here. There's been several articles in the Houston Business Journal about how profitable this club has been. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I don't think they'd be selling players left and right if there was that necessity. And I'll go further. I think you hit it right on the head. The proof couldn't be more clear than with Tarsian in the Houston Dash, because I think that's a player that you could have afforded to keep. And you can talk about players' hopes and wanting to play in Europe. If you're trying to be competitive and if you're trying to put the best team on the field, you're pleading with these players, right? You're negotiating. You're saying, listen, I want you here. Give me one more year. Let's give this a chance. Let's go for the trophy. And then, and again, maybe it won't work with everybody, but it's been too many players now. Maria Sanchez, I think, was the big one, right? Where it certainly seems like for players, the grass is greener on the other side. And when is the grass going to be greener here? And it's not all about just putting money together, right? Like you said, the culture, a culture of wanting to play a style that's attractive to fans because it'll bring them to the stadium. It's attractive to players that want to be part of this project. And again, we keep going to the easy ones. When is the youth part of this going to be pulled together? Because you talk about the young players in Miami. They've done some work locally too. It's not just, the players they're bringing from overseas. When is this going to finally be a piece of the puzzle here? And I know Dynamo 2 got off to a win, and that's fine. And we've seen them win games before. When is it going to be part of the development? When are we going to see the upwards arrow next to players? They had a kid who just scored over the weekend. Put him on the first team. He seems like he's more ready to go at defenses than some of these players on the first team. And if it doesn't work out, then at least you gave it a shot. But Victor, I don't think it will happen because that's not the plan to play that way. And it's sort of for people to, they're more worried about keeping their own jobs than growing the sport. And that's been the truth about these clubs here in Houston. That's what needs to change. That culture needs to change.
Laura, Victor, I agree with everything you've said, Victor, relative to the culture, and I'm talking the sporting culture, maybe not the culture of how we treat each other. And let me clarify that. But the Dynamo organization, I think, symptomatic to what we saw in Columbus. They aspire to do a certain thing, but I don't see them having the ability to do it. Victor, I would rather have a commitment from the team to say, look, in the next 8 years, we are going to have homegrown players, and we're committed to giving these players opportunities, and give us 8 years. Here's my plan for 8 years, and grow it like other clubs have done, and use the youth to have that as the defining moment and plan for the future. I feel the Dynamo are caught in between. Well, should we bring in a Cristiano Ronaldo? Well, we can't afford him, but there's an Hector Herrera. That might be a possibility, but we can't keep him too long. And how's the youth doing? I don't think there's a commitment to one way or another. And I think we're seeing those results on and off the field. So easier.
I think there's a commitment to doing things on the cheap.
Well. At the end of the day, that shows itself, Victor. You can't ask for results if the results speak for themselves, and a lot of this is tied to budget and spending. Laura, I'll let you have the last word on the Dynamo and where we're going. Already 3 games into the season, and it's not looking great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I wish that I could sit here and give you all the answers and be positive. I know a lot of people, on Twitter, if we say something negative and are like, well, the team isn't looking great, guys, per usual. People want us to say, no, I think the team's doing amazing. They're working together. They're going to do it. They're going to be able to pull it off. These quote unquote working type of guys, and they're going to do it. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that there has to be a huge change fast, because if not, I think that the team's gonna sink. I mean, just looking at these first 3 games, it's not good. It's not good, and I don't only blame the coach. I really don't. I think that it's a whole kind of assessment kind of thing, and it's not looking good. And I think they might be having. I mean, they've been having an identity crisis for years now, but I think with Herrera leaving, it's back to what are we doing? What you just mentioned of, are we going to be a club that concentrates on only getting homegrown players? Yeah. Are we going to be a club that only wants to have big names? Can we afford that? Can we, how can we afford that? Or what are we going to do? The self-identity crisis is real. And I think that the club has always had it after having those big names, those working names, from the beginning when the club came to Houston. I think that that's what they wanted to do. It just didn't transition to when the players retired from the original Laura. Cast.
Brian Ching was a U.S. men's national team player. Dwayne De Rosario was playing for the Canadian national team. So was Pat Onstad. Ricardo Clark was also on the U.S. team. I mean, these were players that were with their national teams aspiring to get to a World Cup. These weren't, just a collection of guys from, we'll grab this guy off waivers. We'll pull this guy up from the second team. And it's just, let's just put 11 guys on the field. We'll take Nico Lodeiro on the cheap because, Orlando doesn't want him anymore. What was it on the, I think the Miami game, I think it was Andrew Wiebe that said Jack McGlynn was offered to the Dynamo by the Philadelphia Union instead of, maybe them going after. I mean, if you go with that report, I mean, again, I just think, again, like you said, if they just, I think it would be more honest to just say, listen, we're going all in on youth and we're going to believe in the Houston community. But then they go and get guys from other teams anyway. So then that kind of falls flat.
And flat is the way the team has started the 2025 season. So maybe that's a good time to transition. And friends, we want to hear from you. How do you see this Dynamo team early on? How do you see Ben Olsen's putting this together? Victor mentioned Jack McGlynn. Is he the future of this team? And if so, I don't know if that's today. I don't know if it's 2025. It may be in a couple of seasons. Still a lot of season left. So we still remain, I want to say, optimistic about the potential.
Speak for yourself.
But it's certainly not starting well. So let's transition. And we mentioned Tarsian. We mentioned the Houston Dash that kick off literally in a few days the 2025 season in the NWSL. And this Laura is a team that from the top now has cleaned house. And maybe we start there before we talk about players or the expectation for the season. But what do you think about the two new people now that are leading this program from the outside, coming in and taking a fresh look? Maybe, Laura, that's the way to look at this.
Yeah, I mean, I want to again be positive and hopefully see some changes, but we've been down this road again of reconstruction, of recreation, of I don't even know what to say anymore. It's always that thing that we're revamping, redoing. It's something that I've heard before, but with changes here and there, with Angela Hughley's Magano, she has a lot of experience. She comes from LA. I think that she does have a lot of good ideas and things that she can really do here in Houston. She has experience with soccer in itself. So, hopefully something is done, and in whatever the ideas that she does have, she is giving the help and the tools that she needs to make that happen. As far as the head coach, I don't know,
Fabrice Gautreau, yeah.
Fabrice Gautreau, it's just really hard for me to accept, I guess, a coach that has been an assistant coach in the NWSL, but has not held the title of head coach in the NWSL team. Why do I say that? I'm always for giving, someone the opportunity to prove themselves and be great and do this and do that. Unfortunately, I just don't think that Houston is a team to be done that with. I just think that Houston, throughout everything that they've been through, I just really think that they deserved a coach that has a little bit more experience in the NWSL and perhaps more, of strategies that are proven to work as a head coach. Hopefully he proves me wrong and he is the perfect man for this team, and he comes in and the players love him and respect him, and he has these amazing ideas and knows how to play players on the field and can support them in and out of the pitch. And I'm proven wrong, but I just think that these changes of coaches, again, back to back, and all the drama that has happened in the past has affected a lot of players and kind of has made this team, a place that players wanted to come to, and then kind of turned it into a place that players weren't as comfortable, maybe perhaps because of the changes that were going back to back with the head coach. So
Laura,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, let me just give everybody, our followers, a little bit of history. The team, starting in 2014, started with Randy Waldrum as the head coach, but the changes are almost constant. He was the longest serving head coach in the history of the club. We had some interims. Then we had Vera Paw, James Clarkson, by the way, and that's a whole other story. Several interims, including Juan Carlos Amoros, who had success, was the only coach that took the team to its only playoff appearance, and this was in 2022. Since then, Sam Lady has come in. Sarah Loden, she was an interim. Fran Alonso came in. Ricky Clark is an interim, and now Fabrice Gautreau. That doesn't speak well about since April of 2022. There have been a total, I'm counting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 8th coach since April of 2022. That speaks of something, and I don't know how to define it. I don't know if it's the worst luck imaginable for a club. But Victor, why has this team had so many coaches in 3 years? It's almost mind-blowing. When you step away from the day-to-day, Victor, any organization with so much change would have to ask itself, is something not right here? Is it the culture of the NWSL? And Laura, I'll come back to you in a second about the change in culture and the rooting out of even now there's an investigation ongoing with a team in the NWSL. Is this part of that, Victor, a transition in culture, an awakening for the league that naturally is going to push people out, a la James Clarkson? And again, the numbers, the stats, the figures, the facts speak for themselves. Since April of 2022, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coaches, including the new one, Fabrice Gautreau, who's taken over the team here in January of 2025.
I think my answer has always been, and I think it's the same for both clubs, because I believe they mirror each other, even though maybe, they'll point to the Dynamo's been to the playoffs recently and the Dash maybe not so much. But I think the way of operating is almost similar. You're right. You mentioned you had a coach that took you to the playoffs. I would have given him the keys. I would have said, again, stay. What do you need to continue your project? And instead, they decided to part ways for one reason or another. I think for those of us that were around to kind of see the things that we're building, you could have seen that was a coach that made things work, and it's no surprise that he went on to win the NWSL championship a year later. I still say the jury was kind of out on Fran Alonso, and we didn't get to see it. Now that you've seen him go back to Spain, up until this last game, I think they had a unbeaten run of 6 games. He's put Deportivo La Coruña out of the relegation zone. I know that's a different system. So I don't want to say it's all on the coaches. I do think there were some bad picks in there at some points because I think, again, maybe they have a constrained budget. Maybe they have certain restrictions. They go for coaches that agree or can only agree to these limitations, right? Which is why they always end up with, a long-time assistant or somebody who's never been a head coach before, instead of going forward and, in a different degree to what the U.S. men's and women's national teams have done, right? They went and got Emma Hayes, somebody proven, somebody who's done it, won championships, brings a different level of intensity and expectations. Maybe that's not in the budget, whatever the reason. But so going to this weekend, to try to paint some optimism here. Let's see what Gautreau has. I think you have to start seeing a different style, an aggressive style, a team that wants to be competitive, be less conservative, go out and try to win this game. Are we going to, crush them for losing to the team that just won the Challenge Cup and has a, fantastic player like Trinity Rodman? I think depending on how the game goes, I don't think we will, because I think people understand, there's also a team that just got to the final last year. So this is a more complete team, a project that's further along. But how do they fare against them? How are they looking after, about a month or so of preseason? If they give up goals, how do those goals come, right? Are we seeing some kind of progress with some of these players? I think that's what we'd like to see this weekend. And of course, if they can, get a win out of the gate, that'd be great. Certain things too, right? Okay, so you had to sell Tarcian. The Washington Spirit just got Rebecca Bernal, a longtime Liga MX Femenil player. Rayadas fans will know her, and obviously, marketing-wise, that would have been a great pickup as well for the Dash, and maybe a good substitute for, all right, you can play that card where you're letting players go fulfill their dreams in Europe, but let's show the ambition to replace that player
with an equal
somebody
player.
Who's
right,
or has the potential, or has won championships, or whatever you want to say. Jacqueline Ovalle just scored a fantastic goal. She's been doing it for Tigres for a long time. I don't think the money in the women's game is all that high like it is with the men's game. I would try to go after a player like that and add to your squad. Again, even if you're doing things on the cheap, right? I think there's even ways to do it that way. If you got proper soccer people that can identify talent and get you some of these signings, I think you could probably pick some players south of the border that could be good additions to your team. I mean, again, maybe this is more further down the road, but there's a talk now about the youth setup because the draft system is gone and how that's going to go, and are they going to be able to supply players within Houston, which I think that'll be another option. But I think overall, the thing for this season is they have to show progress, and they have to show.
Victor, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm
leaning towards soccer.
Okay, so we come back to the fundamental question that we were just discussing with the Dynamo. When you're the last team in the league, being penultimate this season is progress. Is that enough, right? So, and I understand if you and I and us three were now in charge of the Dash, we've got to take realistic steps. The expectation isn't to win. The expectation isn't even to make the playoffs. Is to win one more game than last season, and that's progress. The question of culture to me is important, though, Victor. Like you said, if I lose a player, if I trade a player, if I don't get in the way of a player like Tarzan, who am I replacing her with? And I keep coming back to one thing, Victor and Laura and friends, and I hope I'm wrong with an instinct as an old man in the grayness, that maybe this isn't an attractive place for top players. And I'm not saying it's even have to do with, I'm going to say this, it doesn't even have to do with ownership, because it's consistently been the 20 years now for the Houston Dynamo. And how many years since 2014? Someone correct me. 12 years for the Dash? Someone's going to have to correct me. Victor, you talked about south of the border. You talked about Liga MX Femenil. Sanchez was here.
Yeah.
It was here with Ordóñez. The new face of the club was here, and it didn't happen, Victor. Is it because, and I go back to it, I know people laugh at me. Is it because it's too hot in the city? Is it because it's not a soccer city? Help me understand, Laura, what, exactly like Victor said, can we not replace a Tarzan with three others that want to improve their careers and come here versus leave here? Is that a fair question?
You know who we need to talk to? We need to talk to the Houston Astros. That's who we need to talk to, because honestly, out of all the professional teams, they were the ones that have been able to pick up from the dirt. And when I say the dirt, when I used to cover them, getting more than losing the 100th game, having all these things go wrong. Like they used to give us tickets just to go and give you food, and now try to go get a game for less than $30 in like up in the boonies. Like it's. The way that team has turned everything around has been admirable. It has been everything but or close to a miracle, but I think it's been a lot of hard work of a lot of people, because not only that, but they've been able to stay with a lot of the same players that they started off with, that they've won championships. And if the team decided to sell them for whatever reason, the player wanted to leave, they bring one in that's equally or better to the one that left. So I think that, yes, it's baseball, it's different, but I think that it has been a team that has been able to unlock that. Because don't talk to me about the Texans.
Because baseball is the priority there.
Don't talk to me about the Rockets. The Rockets haven't done anything.
But Victor, I'll let you talk.
Victor, but I'm talking about, look at all these other teams. If you're saying priority, it's the same thing with the Rockets. What has the Rockets done? I was not arguing. I was talking to this guy in the grocery store. He's like, yeah, but we have this person. I'm like, what have they won? What have they won? I don't care who they have. What have they won? They haven't won anything. The Texans, who are the Texans? Who cares? No, they haven't won anything. Don't tell me anything about the Texans. Like, no, the only team that has been able to do something and has been the highlight of Houston has been the Astros. So do not come to me and say Houston is not a soccer thing. No, it's not a soccer thing. There's something going on with the culture.
Victor, I'll let you take it. I think Victor and I are thinking the same thing here, but please, sir.
I mean, the ownership change for the Astros was the big, I think that was the big change. Jim Crane came in. He needed to make it competitive, and he went out and hired the best. He got Jeff Luhnow. And again, people that know the sport could identify talent. If they let a player go, maybe they had somebody else coming up the system because they've already had that planned out. You don't have that here. For as much as they can say, if that were true, if that were true, then fine. You let Herrera walk, you let Carrasquilla walk, and then you bring the immediate guy, the next guy in line that you have, right? You should have a Rolodex of talent ready to get in here if you're truly getting ahead of it. And I don't think we've seen that proactivity here. And again, I say the same thing. What is the project soccer-wise with the Dash? You know, we'll see. We'll see if Angela Hucles, which I don't put that much into her experience. I think she has a lot of experience playing soccer. But again, if we're going by that notion that they haven't won anything, the Astros, the Texans and the Rockets, then what has Angel City won? Did they win a trophy with Angela Hucles, or what prestige is she bringing other than her time with the U.S. Women's National Team? So I think she's also got something to prove here, just like the head coach.
For sure.
Fabrice Gautrat.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So let's go on the field real quick as we talk about the beginning of the season. And by the way, we, as part of Deportes Nation, will be the Spanish language home again this season in 2025. Home games broadcast live on our platform of Deportes Nation. So we're excited about the start of the season, and we'll talk more about the plan, and we start as early as this coming Friday, March 14th, when Houston faces the Washington Spirit at Shell Energy Stadium. What are the key players, Laura, for this season? Without a doubt, we've got to talk about the one and only in goal, Jane Campbell, who even last season, under all of that pressure and under everything going south, if you will, was a professional, did well, balanced national team duties, and still, to me, was an outstanding player. She's going to be a key, without a doubt, for the team this season.
No, I agree. I do want to highlight again, I think that unfortunately it's just been, it's painful to watch in the sort of sense of seeing all these women really try, which is something that I sometimes see the game of the Dynamo, the men's side, and don't see that the same passion that they put into actually trying to win. It's just that, for whatever reason, like the goals sometimes don't go in, even in games that the Dash has been the one that has been dominant or has had the opportunities. For whatever reason, those goals sometimes just don't go in. And it's really frustrating to see. But as far as players that I'm looking forward to really seeing this year is Jasmine Richardson. I think that that's the one that I'm really interested in seeing, and how she's going to get along with her colleagues, I would say, or teammates on the pitch. Just seeing her play in the She Believes Cup really gave a good highlight of the potential that she has. But it's a different team, and we have to see her now, how she plays along with the team of the Dash, and hopefully we'll see good things out of that. So that's one of the ones I think that I'm looking forward to really seeing how she develops with this team.
You have players that are returning. Sophie Schmidt, to me, that she's been very versatile.
A pillar.
A pillar, without a doubt. We mentioned Jane Campbell. Ordóñez, to me, has not met her potential yet here in Houston. I think we see that. Barbara Olivieri, who's an amazing local story. I think she also has the potential to be a game changer. As I look here, she'll be wearing the number 10, so that speaks of where she is at. But is this a better balanced roster, Victor, at least on paper, than maybe last season? I still think Tarzan being gone is going to affect defensively, but you know what? We can't lament that. That's done.
And Alves too.
Yeah, they weren't winning games with her, anyways.
So Victor, and we will be covering the team, of course, and talking to coach and players about the style of play, the approach to the game, and we'll see it. So Victor, your take on what we should see on the field. To be honest, it's maybe a new approach to the Dash. It's a new beginning.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Jasmine Ryan. I hope let's see what she can bring. If she can bring something different to this offense, open it up a little bit, because I think that'll help Ordóñez as well. I think it's tough with Ordóñez because it's hard to judge her based on the service she gets, or based on the way they nurture her game. It's very similar to what the Dynamo have struggled with. With Ezequiel Ponce here to start the year, with Sebastián Ferreira before that. It's almost like it doesn't work out, right? That They need to figure out a way to make Ordonez a focal point of that offense, so she can start banging in goals. Because we can all easily say if she went to another team, they would find a way to make it work, right? I mean, that would be a key addition for what she brings with her height, for what she brings with her ability. Obviously, with her age, I mean, she still has plenty to improve, but they have to help her in nurturing her game so that she's able to score goals. Olivieri, I struggle with expectations because I don't know how much to expect. I know she's a local, and I'd like her to reach a second level or a next level. I don't know if she has it. I don't know if she's like some of these players in the Dynamo where are we asking too much of them, or is this as much as they can give you talent wise? And I don't think that's disrespectful. I think that's just the reality of things. And that may be said for a lot of players, right? But I that's why I don't want to get too far high with the expectations for Olivieri. If she does have a next level, I think she has to teach us that. But I do think you could see it with Ordonez. Ryan, you expected, right? When she's coming here, I think she's coming here to be a bona fide starter. Jane Campbell, does she have a next level, right? Can she get that, I would say, leadership part of her game? Can she demand more from her back line? I'll say because I think she's a little bit too nice at times for a team that's allowed too many goals, right? And I think in a team, especially with that competitive, you need a goalkeeper that has that. If it's maybe not a must for some teams, depending on if you have that along your back line. But let's see. And then the other ones, Paige Nielsen and Sophie Schmidt, I think they're veterans that bring key experience. Maybe could be like coaches on the field. Again, in terms of Schmidt, I don't know how much we can ask of her every 90 minutes. And we got to see who comes up the ranks and takes a shot at some of these starting positions. I do think we have to see more because, again, down the line, who's challenging Ordonez? Who's challenging Olivieri, right? Who's trying to take these players' spots? Who's challenging Campbell? Again, could all be very interesting storylines to this season if they do it right.
So a couple of notes. We will be missing Yuki Nagasato, who recently retired. Laura, an amazing player. We're going to miss her and her professionalism, her consistency, and her care with the fans.
No, yeah, I think that she's one of the players that when we were there, been covering the girls are always trying to take pictures with her, and just a lot of experience also on the field. I think that it is a big loss for the team. Again, going into another new beginning again for this team. I mean, they do have a lot of players that have experience, a lot of players that I also think that haven't hit their full potential, like you mentioned in the beginning. I mean, I think Alozi is also one that we have to mention there of her, I think, even hitting bigger marks than what she's had. I think that there's a lot of potential, and that's what makes you sometimes frustrating. Just said that there's a lot of potential. And again, there's no big names, yada, yada, but I think that there is a lot of players that, their names are out there, like Campbell. I'd say that she's one of the ones that people recognize now.
Yeah, forgive me, and I'm going to switch gears on you here. We talked a little bit about the team, the new leadership, new players. How do you like the new uniforms? The mantra this year is go beyond. You know what? I like the uniforms. Well,
I'm happy.
I like
you
the
bring
color.
that up.
I like the
Yes.
color. The rollout is positive, and it's and I don't have the copy in front of me. I should, about what go beyond means this year, but those are attractive uniforms. I'll start with the grumpy one first. Victor, those are nice unis. Those are nice unis, aren't they?
Oh, you don't want my opinion.
The color, that's a nice uniform. It's a start.
Yeah, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I think the same argument we said last year with Screwston, we can say here. Listen, if everybody likes it and everybody, wants it to be part of the club, that's I'll leave it up to everybody else. If the girls don't have a problem with it, then that's fine. I know they try to paint it as Cosmic Storm or something NASA related, but I mean they're doing the purple jerseys just like the Dynamo. I'll just leave it at that.
It's an attractive color, Laura. And look, it's like creating a logo. You can say, and I've had people pitch me logos that talk about all kinds of philosophy, and it's just a font difference that someone chose. To me, it's not that deep. It's an aesthetic, but it's an important part of an organization, right? Our Soccer Tejas logo. It took us a couple of minutes to figure out that. Let's go with it. There's no story about the transcendency of mankind in our logo, or how we're getting behind a certain subculture in our country. It's a soccer ball. We want to talk about the state of Tejas and the wonderful sport of soccer. Done. But it's an attractive uniform, Laura. I'm excited about that. Let's build some excitement if possible. But your take on the new unis?
No, I mean, the go beyond thing that you were asking what it meant, it's basically to celebrate the achievement of players, staff, and fans who exceed expectations and inspire positive change. And that sounds pretty because I'm reading it off of their page. And, it's nice. And when Victor mentioned the cosmic storm, I really like that. I like the colors. I like purple. But one of the things that I thought it was nice, and it kind of plays on for what the team has kind of gone through in the last few years, is that what it says, the kid channels a chaotic energy needed to spark a cosmic storm and the rise of a new star. So hopefully they take these words to heart, not only the players, the coach, but also the organization itself, and leave the Dash alone and not try to sell it to another city, because they need to be here. I will be traumatized for the rest of my life if I see another women's pro team leave Houston. I'll leave it at that. And also, I think I'm a size M. I don't know what sizes you guys are, but I'm expecting a full kit of this from the Dash as a present to us, since we're the official Spanish station for them. So just FYI for the, Dash communications team, listening to us.
You heard Laura. So if the package doesn't arrive soon at her house, and by the way, give us your full address here, your social security number, so people know.
You guys can hand it to me in the stadium, and we'll be there this weekend, and I'll be down there doing interviews, and you guys can find me there.
In this preseason with the Houston Dash, there was a scrimmage against the Dallas Trinity, a team playing in the USL Super League, if I'm not mistaken, the first division of women's soccer, equal as far as sanctioning by U.S. Soccer to the NWSL. And it was interesting, Victor, that it was closed doors, only friends and family, is my understanding. No media were, as far as I know, allowed to be there. And it ended. The match ended in a 1-1 tie, and I don't know what that
allegedly.
Well, we weren't there to confirm.
We weren't there.
That's right.
We weren't confirm.
There. We can't confirm. It was a close match, I believe. I understood. And look, the reasoning, by the way, for full disclosure, we requested to be there was, look, we don't want to start showing anyone the way and I have a smile on my face, the lineup we may be having for our first regular match. Look, to me, this is like any sport.
Right.
And I've talked about this. The NFL does not need 73 coaches per player or to hide that they're going to hand the ball off to the running back. It's about execution, right? I don't understand that mentality, not only for the for soccer, but also for other sports. It's to me, it's ridiculous. You execute.
By the way, they aired the. I don't mean to cut you off, but they aired the Coachella game on TV.
They
so
did.
I mean, if that's not tipping off your hand, that was public. The Coachella Invitational. I mean, if I can chime in here,
Please
look. This was the first meeting, right? Houston, Dallas. I know it's two different leagues. This would have been a great event to have at the stadium. Open it up for everybody. For a team that talks about community and trying to take it to the community, I'd be doing as much public things as possible. And I think this was a missed opportunity. All right, they didn't want the preseason bothered, fine. But then don't complain about not getting people at the stadium.
Well,
and this goes for the Dynamo and Dash.
Well, Victor, but I'll go one more. And if we're talking about protecting what you're building, and that's an explanation. I'm not going to use the word excuse. What does it say, Victor and Laura, that, then Victor, I'll start with you, that a team from a newly formed league is competing on the field against an established club in the NWSL? My concern is, and look, the way I look currently at two first divisions, is that this is more opportunity for the women's sport. And women now will have more opportunity. Laura, you can chime in on this in a second if you want, to grow. And that's good. But an established club with over a decade of existence, 12 years, to tie against the first-year program, that doesn't speak well about the difference. And there is no difference. This justifies the existence of another first division league.
You know what I think it is? It's the same thing sporting-wise as it is, off the field. I think it's insecurity. I think, again, if you think that's going to tip off your hand to other teams in the NWSL, then you have no confidence in what you're building. That you think that it can be that easily torn apart. That, they saw your lineup, and then it's over. They already know how to plan against you. Come on.
No.
Like you said, you still got to execute. And the same thing, I think you got to be brave enough to try some of these things, right? Again, open up yourself to the community. If nobody shows up and you're afraid of criticism of what people might say or how your product may be perceived, I wouldn't even care about that. I'd be more focused on 5 people that got into that building that wouldn't have gotten in otherwise and saw the dash for the first time, or 10 or 15. Next time, hopefully it's 20 and 30 and 40. And that's how you keep building this thing going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. Laura, your thoughts on the Dallas versus Houston match that was but wasn't, in the sense that it was a friendly, quote unquote, and maybe the building. I think what Victor was alluding to of a rivalry here, of something that has wings, that has energy, that's a natural Dallas versus Houston versus Dallas scenario.
No, and I agree. You have 2 of the biggest cities of Texas, and you're going to tell me that they're going to play closed doors, and that's the kind of explanation they gave you. They could have made a little, soccer teams pop up with cups out of nowhere. They could have made their own cup. They could have, just made their own little cup there too. I think that
that's
the potential
opportunity right there.
Yeah, I think that the potential was honestly lost. I think that if the reasoning was that they didn't want anybody to know their lineup, we've dealt with the lack of transparency from the Dash many times before, but for me, this is just the lack of just giving a better excuse, honestly. I think that even what Victor said, if we would have had 2 people show up or just their parents, who cares? That's a good gauge for the communications team, for the marketing team, for the owners to see where the Dash is at. Whether they're going to sell it, whether they're going to do whatever, keep the team, it's a good gauge to have had at that moment. And not only that, but it's against Dallas. It's against Dallas, which is already a rivalry that's huge enough in any other sport. Why not do that now, knowing that they don't have, the opportunity to do that during regular season because the team is not from the NWSL? Why not do that now? Why not take advantage of that rivalry and to also show off and say, hey, there's another team for Dallas in case you guys want to follow it. Or maybe they were scared people were going to like the Dallas team more. I don't know. I just think that there was a lack of a lot of things. And I think that it was a huge missed opportunity.
Huge miss.
We were in the stadium last season for home matches. And again, we'll be the official Spanish language outlet, Deportes Nation will, of this 2025 Houston Dash season. I'll start with you, Laura. The stadium needs to be filled up. There needs to be more attendance. What did you see from the crowd as our sideline reporter, and not only in the heat and the cold and the rain, but you also get the feeling, and I miss that in being in the booth sometimes, of being with the fans and hearing their reaction, whether it's positive or negative. What from that perspective, the acercamiento, the getting closer to the community, something we talk about constantly here on the Soccer Tejas podcast. We want more little girls out there. We want more little boys out there. We want more everybody out there. But how would you frame not your advice to the club, but what would you do? And maybe it's a tough question, but there it is.
No, I think it's a tough question. And there's, we don't have that much time, Alex. But I will tell you what I've experienced throughout many years, not only the seasons that we have been doing the broadcast in Spanish, but throughout the many years since the beginning of the Dash. I think that the Dash and the Dynamo do have several differences, obviously men and women, but also the fans. I think that the fans for the Dash want to have that connection with the players. They actually have tried to have more connection with the players. They do find like the trading cards for them to be signed by the players. The little girls have more of a connection for whatever reason that they have that, with the Dynamo that I've seen with little boys. I see that connection more with little girls and some little boys with that connection with the Dash. The players take more time to actually go and talk, take, selfies, maybe answer a question or two, sign, like I said, the trading cards or a picture. And I think that there's so much more potential to do that in a bigger scale, because there's not a lot of people that do that. But I think that right there is what really makes a team different compared to other teams in the whole Houston, whether it's men or women. I feel like that connection's there. And, there has to be a way to expand it more, to more players, to more little girls. Because to me, what's crazy to me, Alex, that I've spoken to people that have their little girls in a league and they don't know that Houston has a women's professional team.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? What is going on? And you're telling me you live in Houston, you have a cell phone, and you don't know that there's a women's professional team. And many, if they do know that there's a women's professional team, they're like, oh, well, I've never been to the game. Maybe it's expensive. We can't afford it. It's too far. So many things. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's no excuse. And I think that the Dash could really hone in on that and take advantage of that, of, the little girls, so many little girls playing more soccer now than when I was that, a little girl. And
which was a long time ago. That was a long time ago.
100 years ago, perhaps. But the lack of diversity, perhaps, that there was back then, of more Latinas and more African Americans playing the sport. Now it's still not equal, but there's more of that. So I think that there's so many in Houston. The Houston team is so diverse itself. So there's so many ways and so many avenues that the team can really attract more families, more little girls, more little boys, families in itself to the stadium to support them. That it's something, there's a misconnection between the LAC and the community, which I think is like the missing piece that can really bring it all together.
Laura, I don't want to give you, and I'm going to give Victor the next question, but I'm with you. It would be a shame if the Houston Dash or professional soccer doesn't stay in Houston.
I will do a riot.
For many.
I will protest.
Well, you might be the only one. Apparently, that's part of the problem. For decades to come. Victor, I don't want to equate this to the Comets, but from a business point of view, Victor, if you're not selling out the stadium, this becomes, and friends, I pretend to run businesses. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, that's not a business. And I understand that you want to give. Get rid of the
Dynamo. Get rid of the Dynamo. They're not filling up stadiums either. Get rid of them then.
Laura, let me get the question to Victor. But Victor, if from a business perspective, is the Dash a business that's sustaining itself? If you were the owner of that club, and I'm gonna throw you a direct, tough question, you've got to make it work. And if it doesn't, you've got to ask yourself. And as you asked Ted Siegel, Victor, you know exactly what he told you. You were the only one that's asked him about the finances of the club as of recent that I'm aware of. And his response was relative to the Dash, Victor, that they're looking into it. And then you followed up by asking whether or not the team would relocate. He said it wouldn't. But you know what? If someone else buys that team, they have the right to do whatever they need to do with that team. So, Victor, I'll turn it over to you. I'm with Laura. This should be growing. I want to have 22,000 people in that stadium every time the Dash kick off. But that's not our reality today. And it hurts because we love the sport. Victor.
I think you always hear this about small businesses, that you're working more hours, right? This consumes a lot of your life. It goes into your weekend. But if you're trying to make this thrive, that's what you got to do to make a small business operate. At least in the beginning years, right? You have to have a certain hunger about you, is where I'm trying to get with this. And I don't think, and I see this again, Dynamo Dash, because I think the leagues sustain the teams, at least in the MLS it does, sustain the teams to a point. I don't know if these teams have that hunger to go out and make sales, to go out and try to sell tickets, to go out and try to make as much money, or are they just trying to, you know, keep it level where, you know, just cut down costs so we can just break even? You know, where is the ambition? Um, there was a saying I you know, years ago, I can't remember exactly, but I'm paraphrasing here. Basically, you know, why is it that, you know, um, certain owners, right, maybe don't believe in spending money on marketing, right? They don't believe in advertising for sales. But when you basically when you go bankrupt, right, when your business goes under, you're advertising it to sell it. And I think that's kind of the key here. You know, we're hearing all this talk about, oh, it's for sale, we're exploring, they're trying to get themselves out there, you know, in a, you know, wink wink, and leaking into an article or to an outlet here, so we can kind of put it out there that we're putting the team, whether it be in part or in whole. Why not invest in this team? I'm not saying for millions and millions and millions of dollars, but I think you have to put some money in here to, again, tell more people in Houston that you exist. Remind them that you exist. Invite them to come out to games.
Yes.
I think part of this, like I said, is boots on the ground. You got to go out and get out in your community, shake hands and kiss babies, and you know, plaster your team in parks and in schools, and all these little things that take time and take effort, and then maybe go into some of your weekends, right? And I think that's kind of where, and you know, every business will be different, but I don't think, and I'm not trying to say they, you know, I don't know, I'm not in charge of people's salaries, and if they got to get paid overtime, whatever you got to do to make it happen. But my point is, I think for some people, this job is 9 to 5 and it ends there. And I think the Dash needs more work than that. I think the Dash needs continuous, especially because, like you mentioned, of all the years, no, you're not going to fix that overnight. But you have to understand that your team has been that far dug into the ground, both of them, that's going to be the work that you're going to have to do to dig them out of that hole. And the further you let them dig into it, or the further you dig yourself deeper into that hole, again, maybe that's going to be the only option, is to sell the team to somebody else. And if that somebody else wants to take it out of town, again, you're not going to have as much say or any say in that at all. That's going to be up to the league or up to the new ownership. You know, we probably heard of potential cities where it could end up going. But I think, again, you don't wait until the Dash needs saving, or you don't wait until the Dash is about to leave town to try to save it. You got to start saving it now.
Yeah.
You got to start acting now, and you got to start trying to get people to the stadium this weekend, and then build on it the next and the next. And you got to start with this season if you want any hope of this team resurging or building something here in Houston while there's still time.
Victor and Laura, you've heard me say this, and friends, in other presentations, I've talked about one of the reasons that I believe the Dash in particular have not been filling up Shell Energy Stadium, and it really has to go back. It goes back to decisions made by previous ownership and leadership regarding the youth soccer market. And Victor and Laura, you know this. There are hundreds of thousands of children that play soccer on a regular basis in our city, and certainly in Southeast Texas. There should be a better market. I am amazed that in other markets there are regular crowds of 15 to 20,000 fans supporting NWSL. Yes, we talked about the Dallas Trinity playing in the huge Cotton Bowl with attendance of 3,000. It's something that needs to grow, and that might be a good comparison again to what they're doing to win on the field and to grow the grow the fan base. Laura, you said it. There's so many little girls and little boys love soccer, whether it's played by a woman or a man. But why are those hundreds of thousands of little girls not attending? And in part, I say it's because of the sins of the past of the organization, who try to monopolize youth soccer by creating the Dynamo Dash Youth Club that the current ownership and organization understand was a huge mistake. There's no trust from local clubs. They're not promoting the Dash or Dynamo in their leagues, in their clubs, and that's a problem. And there's a balance there. You have to get closer. And the organization, I'll be transparent, are doing more to, first of all, acknowledge that mistake, that error, and try to be there for others, for the clubs that want to participate. But that legacy, Victor and Laura and friends, may take a decade, to be honest with you, knowing the soccer culture, the youth soccer culture, to overcome. And that's very difficult. And I'm going to say this not to insult anyone in the current organization, but if you don't know about that and you come into Houston from outside and ask yourself, why are there only 3,000 people here? That's part of the history that I think is important for someone to acknowledge and learn about, to not replicate, and to improve upon. And it comes back to being to humility, number one. And Laura and Victor, I'm saying this from my heart, because if we don't talk about these things now, Laura, unfortunately, we are going to be talking in 3 or 4 years that the team is gone, and we're going to be lamenting it. So, Victor, I'm with you. I think there's an urgency here to talk about what it would mean to lose the Dash and what a shame it would be to our city. Look at the comments, Laura. You live this story, winning championships 4 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. The best team in the WNBA. And since that date, with a new ownership that took over, Les Alexander selling, the return to Houston hasn't existed. And you see that market and that sport booming. And it's a shame we lost out and they wouldn't return. But Laura, I'll let you have the last word on the Dash. Let's be optimistic. Let's get some energy. But also talk some truths. Who's going to be optimistic
after you just said all that? What are you talking about? No, but I will say
we
this.
Still have a team.
I will say this. We have been able to
we may not broadcast
to...
in Spanish after that little speech, but
No. That's why I'm going to fix it. Hush now. Listen, I will say that a lot of the community, I don't know, they have different specific titles, but the community outreach program, we've been able to talk to several of those workers. And I will say this, that they are very passionate. They do realize that there needs to be more of a connection to the community. Is it enough? Just, some events here and there? No. I think that the people that they do have are the correct people that they have. And hopefully the higher ups in the organization will continue to listen to the people that are out there on the day to day, who are, doing what Victor said, having the boots on the ground more. We need more of that. The ones that are there, the ones that I've spoken to, I do see that passion and I do see that love in general for the game itself and for Houston, which I think is essential. Because if you don't have love for Houston and the surrounding areas that connect us all, and if you don't have love for the teams that you're promoting or love for the soccer, just in general, then you don't need to be doing that kind of job. And the people that they do have, the ones I've spoken to at least, have all those 3 different criterias. So that makes me feel positive in the sort of sense that, if they listen to the people that are out there, again, day to day, then things can be fixed. And hopefully the ownership does take that step and the humility to really listen to others, to what perhaps needs to be done to really have that strong forever connection with the community.
We hope so. And by the way, friends, we invite you this Friday, March 14th, live from Shell Energy Stadium. 7 p.m. kickoff. Will be on the air at 6:30. Not only myself, but Laura de Gomez that you see on screen, Daniela Rodriguez also with us, and somewhere in there as well will be the one and only Victor Araiza. So we got to wrap up. I mean, we're an hour and 24 minutes into this, and we're just barely scratching the surface. Before we go, though, what's on our minds? And Laura, I'll turn to you first. What's on your mind as we wrap up this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast?
I go into the NWSL again. They got their first beauty brand money. I guess money from them from it's called Elf, and that's their first beauty brand sponsor, which is huge. And I think that it's great, something that so many women use out there, and to have that money go back into a sport that supports women, I think it's a big step. And I hope other sponsorships really take a look more into women's sports, specifically women's soccer, and continue to support these women that deserve equal pay as far as the men, because they play even better than them. The games that I've seen are exciting, and I just again invite everyone to sit down and take a look at what this sport has done and what women have contributed to it.
Elf. So Elf can maybe help me a little bit.
Yes.
I'm a little too
I don't
old
know. I
for
think
that.
you're beyond that, but
beyond
we
that.
can start somewhere.
Yeah, let's start somewhere. Victor, what is on your mind, sir, as we get ready for the start of the NWSL season and we continue here on our The Soccer Tejas podcast?
Yeah, I'll keep it to the theme of women's soccer. FIFA just announced 2 new tournaments, in case you didn't catch this. The FIFA Women's Champions Cup and the FIFA Women's Club World Cup.
We believe you.
Yeah. So there you go. I'll repeat that. The FIFA Women's Champions Cup and the FIFA Women's Club World Cup. The Club World Cup will be somewhat to what we, a lesser version, right? Less teams of kind of what we're going to see this summer.
Yeah.
But that'll be every 4 years, and then every year that's not taking place, which basically be the 3 years in between. That's the FIFA Women's Champions Cup. So we can finally see some of these matches, like maybe an FC Barcelona versus a Houston Dash on this kind of a stage. Hopefully, I know it's a long way to go for somebody like the Houston Dash, because they got to first win the CONCACAF. First, they got to win the NWSL. or place
or be competitive,
whether
right?
it be the Shield or
yeah.
or the Cup, but then you gotta go on win the CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup. Then you qualify to this thing, and again, hopefully we were able to at some point talk about something like that, and like you said, not talk about the latter, which would be the Dash not even competing because we don't even have them anymore. So keeping that there, that hope out there, and we'll see if they can turn things around.
Enough pessimism. So there you go. Let's be optimistic. Well, what I will do with my opportunity is talk about referees at all levels, at the youth level, at the college level, at the high school level, at the professional level. What's on my mind is always the way we treat or mistreat referees, friends. We've got to do a better job. I see this on the weekends at local parks. I see this at high school games. And high school, we'll be talking about high school playoffs coming up soon in the state of Texas, in the state of Tejas, depending on how you want to say it. And even at the professional level, look, referees make mistakes, but it's getting really, really out of control the way we mistreat referees. These are human beings. Many of them have to quadruple task when you're running a game. I've attempted it, and it's not about me attempting to be a ref, but the moment any of you complain about being a ref, I challenge you to be in their shoes. Walk in their shoes for a year in getting certified, in learning, and then you will know how difficult it is at any level. It is incumbent on the growth of the sport for us to have better referees, and that means our culture has to change. So that's what's on my mind as we wrap up this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. We'll start with you, Victor. Say adios, say goodbye. What's the last word for you, sir?
That's it.
Positive.
We love soccer on this podcast, and we hope to be talking about hopefully better news as these episodes go on.
I like that. Laura, your last words as we wrap up.
Support the Houston Dash and us.
And not necessarily in that order, but both, please. We would greatly appreciate it. So on behalf of all of us, first of all, thanks to our production team. And we do invite you to follow us not only for the Houston Dash season, home games, but the entire Houston Roughnecks season of the UFL. We'll have more information on that in late March. The 28th, I believe, is the kickoff to the UFL season. The team, the Roughnecks, back at TDECU Stadium at the campus of the University of Houston. So also the Deportes Nation, the official home in Espanol of the Houston Roughnecks. So on behalf of Victor, on behalf of Laura, I'm Alex Parra. Thanks to all of you that take the time to listen to us. Please send us your comments, whether it be on social media or whether it be on Victor's private phone number, which is 713. And maybe I won't go there. You can complain to him, but we really do appreciate all of you. What is it, Victor?
Yeah. I was going to say, that's the wrong area code to start, but...
Well, they don't know that, Victor. Shh. Anyway, friends, on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate the time you take to tune in, to follow us. And we hope you can join us on the next edition of this, what we call the Soccer Tejas Podcast. Until next time.